There are stories that connect us to ourselves and to each other. These stories reveal who we are and show us the many vivid colors of our truth. Welcome to Soul Wanderings, where we raise spiritual awareness and foster connections through these shared stories and personal experiences. Now, exclusively on KGRA Digital Broadcasting, your hosts, AJ and Natalie.
Hello and welcome to Soul Wanderings. I'm AJ.
And I'm Natalie.
And we are your hosts. We hope you have come to find us in our new time slot and time frame here on kgradb.com at 7 p.m. Eastern. We did move an hour earlier. I hope you all got the memo and don't join us at the very end. That would be very sad. We invite you to visit us at soulwanderings.com, like, follow, subscribe, share, etc., on all of the social media platforms or of your choice. We are now in our new 1 hour time slot, so the show will move quickly. It was a lot different in a 2 hour time slot, but we're excited to give you this quality content really quickly. Honestly, it's really quickly. An hour goes by so fast. So this week, Natalie chose our topic. Natalie chose our topic based on the human design system, and the title of our show tonight is on whose authority. So everyone has an inner voice, an inner guidance system, and it's important that you trust and follow that personal authority. And we're going to talk more about that this evening. In fact, Natalie will probably do a big portion of that. It's your topic.
It's one of my favorite things to talk about, and it's such a life changer to be connected with your own inner authority and have reflection on authority in general. So I'm looking forward to the discussion tonight.
Yeah, it's definitely a good one and an important one. And especially from where I come on the Akashic side and you come from the human design side, I feel like the information that you've gathered with human design and where it was discovered is all very spiritual, yet you're very technical because of the system. It is more technical than anything, although it did arrive from a spiritual space. And what I do is more on the Akashic side, the spiritual side of things. And it's really neat to see how they align. So through the conversation, I'm looking forward to seeing how much so. These are organic, unscripted conversations. So it's easy. It's fun to see what plays out in front of us as we have the conversation.
It's definitely true. And I lost as I'm still okay. Got my notes, got things ready, my
Take a deep
talking
breath.
points. What?
Take a deep breath.
Right. That's actually a part of this discussion is having some practices. We've talked about this before, but it's very important during these times where there is so much going on in the world and our nation, probably in our own communities, to have particular practices like breathing, but to really have them regularly in your life. This ability to just come into your own space. And that's one of the first steps in starting to, now I'm not going to take an assumption that everybody out there is listening doesn't already have some connection to their own authority. So I'm not coming from that space. So a lot of times I get this personal impression that said, sometimes when I'm listening to someone, but I've already been doing a lot of things. I have a lot of practices. I'm engaged with myself. Yes, recognize that our listeners have that going on. This is to deepen the discussion to expand on what you already have going in your life, fine tune it, because these are the times to really be connected. And there's really no time off from this. There's so much information coming at us
Mhm.
in all sorts of ways. And learning to sort through information is one of those steps towards understanding and connecting to whose authority. So when I thought about this topic, when you think about this concept that said on whose authority, is it on my authority? Is it on my neighbor's authority, my mom's authority, my dad's authority, my best friend's authority, on the president's authority, on politicians, on community leaders? This is what I want this topic to be grounded in. It's this idea on we make decisions all the time. Decision
Mhm.
making is a big effect. Where we go in our life is definitely based on the decisions that we're making on a regular basis. Even little decisions. You ever had that thing where you run into someone and you realize that you launched off and left at a particular moment to go to a store at a particular moment, you run into someone. Oh, the coincidences or all the synchronicities that happen in life. And these are little decisions being tuned in little ways and listening to where do we go and how do we go there and then the big decisions. What job do I take? What do I put my energy into? Um, all those types of things. So when you're looking at or considering how am I making my decisions and I'm doing it from my own personal authority. Do I even know what that is? And tuning into all the various ways that could be authority. So, when you were thinking about this topic, AJ? What was coming to mind for you? Was there anything coming to mind when you were considering this concept of authority and whose authority?
You mentioned at the beginning of what you were about to share how this would be a more in-depth, more advanced conversation, yet I always like to come from the beginner perspective because we're always learning. And so every time I hear a topic, regardless if it's an old topic that I have already learned or not, I like to go into it with a beginner mindset. When you brought up the topic of on whose authority, I actually was quite confused. What do you mean by that? Because the language that you use with human design is different than, um, like our typical everyday language. Granted, I've heard the lingo before, but in religion. And so your connection to God and what that looks like, your authority thereof. And so with that being said, I didn't think too much of it past then. When I go into a topic or an experience that um, we're having or whatever we're experiencing, I like to feel on things because I do feel the energy and the way that it resonates either by vibration or the sound of the word, and then I check in to see how that feels. So when you say authority, I look at things from the spiritual side. Like in human design, the word is authority, and coming from that place, I would use the word intuition because you have your inner guidance system, that inner voice, which is your intuition. What do you think about that when I say that?
So I agree with that. I also feel like that. So within the framework of the human design, which I definitely come from on a regular basis, there's multiple authority centers, which means that there's multiple voices that can be an authority within any given person. So the way intuition is definitely one of them. And tuning into your intuition is one aspect of getting inner guidance through one voice, intuition. My studies and the framework which I understand about intuition is soft. It doesn't really shout. It doesn't speak loudly, and it takes a bit to tune into it, and it really is fully present in the now. And it doesn't that's where it speaks from, is the now. And so this is what, from my framework about intuition, now my own personal experience with connecting to my intuition, I definitely found that that was true. It was something I'd go along and I'd get this little a spark that would come up, and maybe I'd catch it or maybe I wouldn't. And then it would be maybe after I'd encountered something that thought, oh, I knew that. My intuitive voice was telling me something, but I didn't necessarily catch it in the moment. But I worked and worked and worked on tuning into that intuition. So I see intuition as one of the possible authorities that humans have, is their intuition. And it is an inner guidance system. And that's my framework when I'm talking about intuition, knowing that it's a voice that speaks once generally, doesn't repeat itself often. It's important to be focused and mindful in the now with it. Does that, from your framework, does that resonate with you?
It does. So, okay, so I'll just go straight. This morning when I did my meditation, and then I actually accessed the records and asked on whose authority. Like, what does that mean? What does that feel like? This is the message that I received as far as that goes, because I tapped in feeling like it was intuition. I was validated in that in a lot of ways, but there is some things that come up with that. And so this is where it's different. I feel like intuition, you say it's this quiet, small little voice, and if we miss it, we miss it. I know that there are different authorities in the human design where that is very accurate. Also, I feel after what I received, and in fact, I'll just share with you what I got, then it will make sense, and I won't just pick it apart. So, most humans, the way that we are and the way that we operate, we're disconnected from self. So we set that authority or that intuition aside as if it makes no difference in the way that we move throughout our lives, when in fact it's like one of the most important things that makes us uniquely us. And so we gather all of this information from our friends, from our family, from the news, from social media, etc., right? And many of us listen to these outside sources and ignore this beautiful inner counsel that we have inside of every one of us. And each one of us has that. Each one of us is designed to have our own inner guidance system or authority, if you will. And I see how you separate it in the way that you do. I still just feel like they're so combined and interconnected. Like that's just the true essence of ourself when we're connected to self. Where human design is it's a system that you learn to get to know yourself, to come back to that
Yes.
connect to self. And so at the end of it, when we know what's going on inside of us by how we feel inside when we make decisions, like as little ones as what do we decide to eat, the friends we choose, the clothing we wear, and we take time to really ask ourselves those things, which is just part of being human. But when's the last time we really asked ourselves, like, who am I? And what do I like? And what do I believe? And what sets my soul on fire? And those are ways to also have a deeper knowledge of self and connection to self, because a lot of us are operating outside of self. We're not connected to ourself.
I definitely can resonate with the way that you say that. As you were talking, I realized that my study in human design, it is similar to studying, maybe let's say biology, physiology, anatomy, because that's really in a way, what the study of human design is an array of anatomy, an
Mhm.
anatomy of your framework of your particular design, your blueprint. What's defined, what's reliable in you, and what is not reliable that is coming from someone else. So along those
Right.
lines, when we're talking about authority, what's consistent and reliable and defined within us is ourself. It's the capital S self. It
Right.
said that's me. That's me talking. And then when you if you study the design at all, or even other philosophies or other esoteric practices, you can come to this awareness that there's instruction, there's philosophies that come from outside, and
Mhm.
and in the human design system, what it says is you have areas in you that are undefined, which means that they're open to the world around you, which means
Mhm.
that you're getting planetary conditioning, you're getting people's conditioning, you're getting amplification within your own body, so it feels like you because you're having this experience on the inside of your skin, or so it appears. And it can be quite confusing to say,
Mhm.
well, which is me and which is me, and it's the or which is the self and which is myself, which is the lowercase self and the uppercase self. So with some specifications, like looking at your body graph, to even though you don't know it, it's the beginning thing to say, oh, I have areas that are reliable and consistent inside of me, and then I have areas that are not reliable and consistent, as far as that I can trust that particular aspect to truly guide me as
Mhm.
myself. So that's
Right.
a framework of starting to understand that, to say, oh, there's a whole lot that we experience inside the skin, and there's a lot of it that comes from even the realization. Now, through my study of design, I had some awareness that astrology astrology has an impact on everybody's
Mhm.
life, whether we believe it, whether we resonate, whether we even have any knowledge about it or not. A lot of people just don't have knowledge about it. But if
Mhm.
you study it in any amount, you start to go like, whoa, there's something
Mhm.
to this part. So understanding that the planets, the sun, the moon, the earth all have these effects on any given person, in addition to other people and the information that we take in. I would want it to give pause. Have people just pause for a minute. Or just take that in and go, if I have not sat and sorted through some of this, then I'm getting a lot of conditioning. It was news to me when I learned I'm being conditioned by the outside world. I bump
Right.
into a person's aura. It can stay with me depending on what it is. That was really,
Mhm.
really a big thing to take in and absorb and come to realize over time.
Right, and it is the deconditioning process for sure. In fact, when I was in the records, I was shared like these outside beings, like the beings outside of us only influence us to question ourselves, to doubt ourselves more times than not. And we learn through those processes not to love ourselves. We stop trusting our judgments, we forget our worth, we lose ourselves in addiction. Insert your experience here. Like it can be so many different things, and then there becomes that separation of self. And then after all of that, we hold those traumas and triggers really close to us. We have a story. We tiptoe around what others may think or feel about us, if they have a different opinion or even dislike what we have to say. And then there's all the rules. We follow all these rules. We look for validation about what is right and what is wrong. I mean, look at religion or cults or even political groups. You had brought that up earlier. Just to fit in, right? We're just trying to find a place to fit in regardless of what our inner guidance system is telling us, because we've been so separated from ourselves. We just want this sense of belonging, and in doing so, we become something that we're not, which creates more separation, which takes us further away from ourselves. And even from birth, like we're separated. literally. So you talk about the conditioning process. It literally happens from the moment we're born. It's one of the biggest reasons we're here having this human experience is so that we can have a deeper knowing of self. Yet from the very beginning, we're separated, right? All of our memories are wiped. And then we're thrown into another human's body. And then we're born and all the trauma of birth. And it just starts from there. And then our whole entire lives, we're having these experiences and we're learning to F ourselves up. Like we have, just like you said, it's like this process that we go through in order to know ourselves, and some of us don't even do it in this lifetime, but a lot of us at least get started. And that's what I love about the human design system is that it's like a catapult for you. It shakes you awake, if you will, to like seeing yourself in ways that no one else has seen you as. It's like holding up a mirror of your highest form of self. And here you are, get to know yourself. Look in the mirror and say, "Hi, hi, self." And really get to know who you are at your deepest level. And I love, love that about the human design system. I also love it about the Akashic Records. It's very similar, just not as technical.
It comes from the great oneness or that concept where the human design is grounded in the world of form,
Yes.
where there is this appearance, it's an illusion of separation, that we're separated because we're in physical bodies. Well, you were talking, it reminded me, I recently had a session with, I think she's 15, so a young teenage girl.
Wow.
And the reason why she came in was because she felt alone, so alone. How often do you hear this? And this is such a common thing with humans that we feel
Regularly.
alone in
Mhm.
this. So I sat with her and I explained her design, and by the end, she had felt seen and understood because I was talking to her. And sometimes when I get going, I can be really entertaining. So it was entertaining. She was laughing and she was crying sometimes too. But it was beautiful to be recognized. And I feel
Mhm.
like we talk we talk on this where we're talking about spirituality and connection and consciousness. And to resonate in the spirit, the higher physical, not physical, spiritual vibrations, frequencies, is to see each other differently than the vast majority of the world. The most of the world lives at a
Mhm.
survival level. Really, we have billions and billions of people on this planet. The vast majority of humans on this planet are just surviving.
Mhm.
So that's not us. We may feel like we're just surviving, but we are not
It
just
used to be
surviving like
me.
the bulk of people are on this planet. So we have some luxury. Take a pause for a minute and say, "Oh, yes, we have luxury. We have this ability to literally have these conversations
Mhm.
because we're not in such a survival mode that we're able to do meditation or pauses and tune into ourselves in
Mhm.
different way." So the aloneness, that illusion of separation definitely happens, like you were saying, and discovering these different systems, tuning into this and coming inside. The benefit of knowing your personal human design is because it gets very personal about what your inner authority is.
Mhm.
One of the main components of understanding your design
Mhm.
is to say. So there's multiple ones, but I want to focus on the main ones in this conversation where we talk about the intuition, which is also called splenic authority. And then I want to talk for a minute about the emotional authority. We've talked about it before. Yes, me
That's me.
too. And I want to bring up one of the components of an authority, such as an emotional energy. Really, this understanding that if you look up your human design and your inner authority, solar plexus or emotional. Wow. That means you get your guidance from your emotions, or by going through all your emotional waves and then popping out the other side after days or weeks, or that's literally what it is. So you go into your emotion, and how much, so often we live in a society that so often doesn't give any credence, or it's like, let's control the emotions, let's not let it be free reign. And I'm not talking about free reign, go crazy, um
Well,
super,
and not even have emotions. Think about
right,
all the medications we're given to not have the emotion.
right. And literally, if you happen to have solar plexus or emotional authority and you're on medication, you're losing your guidance system.
Mm.
And I'm not here to preach for the medication thing. We're having a conversation of saying that if you discover that you have emotional authority, like you and I have definitely discovered, it requires leaning towards those emotions and developing this relationship with your emotions in a way that's different before you know that.
Right.
And time.
Growing up as so my authority in the human design is emotional, just as yours. We have different, obviously, emotional, what are they?
Waves.
Rave. Okay. So the terminology.
Right. I'll help.
My whole life, I'm emotional, and everyone is saying, AJ, you're so emotional. Oh, you're overreacting. Oh, you shouldn't feel that way. And so my whole life, while I'm having these experiences that were actually my emotions were guiding me, and I'm just listening to my gut say, yes, this is right. No, this isn't right. On the very human level, part of it, not understanding the whole significance of it all. And being told, no, you're not right. You're crazy. You're too emotional. Insert whatever there. And I think it's so interesting now because I have been practicing my human design for the last couple of years, almost, that I have this permission slip to be emotional, to be me, and to trust what's coming through when I'm in that emotional place. And I think that is one of the most powerful things that I have experienced through this process is getting in touch with my authority and having permission to be myself by doing so. And in fact, encouraged
Yes.
specifically by you. Mhm.
It's I as I listen to myself when I'm encouraging the emotional nature with people, I feel like there's some hesitation initially, some not certainty
Mhm.
to say, well, if you're not in tune with that, you don't have your guidance system on. You're
Mhm.
not really getting clear guidance. You're not really and many people will go back and can do reviews of their decisions and realize that they weren't tracked on their own.
Mhm.
We so often will make decisions because someone's input, someone's advice. How often are we all undecided, indecisive? Decisions are very not the easiest thing. It often um, it blocks people get locked up. That's the word that I'm looking for. Locked up and even paralyzed to make a decision. Will I make a right decision? Will I make a wrong one? Will I learn and grow from it? Or will I just beat myself up in 10 years about this thing that I decided that didn't go quite the way that it wanted to? Am I listening to my mind? My mind telling me, let's do this thing. And then I do a thing, and then the mind is like, oops, oh, okay, well, how about we do this other thing? How our minds can be so influenced. We want to talk about that for a minute. This is in lots of bodies of knowledge and science that we are very susceptible as humans. Our minds are easy to program, which is why hypnosis works, NLP, these different programming methodologies or modalities that can work to adjust and get us healthier in different behaviors. they also can be utilized in other ways to make, we're very easy to influence unless we know ourselves, unless we're tuned in, unless we're regularly doing this internal check or meditation or pausing to think or learning how that we actually trust ourselves. We definitely can get swayed, go with the herd. Like you were mentioning earlier, we want to find the group that we resonate with, and we go with that group. We're also very tribal in our roots, long-standing roots as humans. We've been around for lots of years, lots of centuries, lots of millennia,
Been
and
around
we
for a
have
minute.
tribal roots for this one lifetime. So all of these have effects on us. So tuning into a particular aspect of yourself and knowing which one is the primary authority can be very beneficial. And knowing that our minds are analytical machines. And a machine that's very good at analysis never stops analyzing. It doesn't stop analyzing. Even when you've made a decision, then it continues to chew, there's like, oh, I don't know, was that the right decision? And how many people, so many people say, I can't get my mind to stop. I can't get it to shut off. The insomnia, the sleeplessness, or we drive it to distraction because it just doesn't stop. It just keeps going and going and going unless we're asleep. And then who knows what happens when we're asleep.
I'd like to know.
It is such a mystery.
It really is.
So I want to ask you, you learned about being this emotional is your inner authority. And I've talked to you often about how decisions need time. Was that uncomfortable? Has it been uncomfortable for you? So for our listeners that are getting information about the human design, I want to say people with emotional authority or solar plexus as their authority, they need to really get comfortable giving themselves time to decide. And that isn't always the easiest thing.
Right. You always say, well, don't make a decision right now. Just sleep on it. And I really have taken advice to that in a lot of ways, because what I found in how would I explain this? I'm very emotional. Obviously, that's my authority. And so I make decisions in an emotional state my whole life, which has caused me to have a lot of really uncomfortable experiences, and also just some really expensive experiences, right?
Yeah.
With money, especially, like, oh, I really want that because emotionally, like, I really, really, really want something. And in that moment, I feel like I just got to have this, or else it's just going to make me feel A, B, and C. And what can I do to make this happen? And sometimes it doesn't matter how even expensive it is. It's just like, I've got to have the fix. I've got to have it. It feels so good. I've just got to have it. And so I'm using that as an example, because it works with everything applicable in my life, where with people, with possessions, whatever that is. So I save a lot more money now. I'll say that. I love dopamine hits, and I get that with like office supplies and craft supplies, and I use them. It's not like they go to waste, but no one needs a stockpile of all of these things. That's just really ridiculous. But it brings me so much happiness and joy in the moment. It's the aftermath that I'm just like buyer's remorse, or feeling bad I said whatever in the heat of the emotion and not really meaning it, or whatever experience that is. And so what it has allowed me to do for myself is really take a pause and honor that pause and not feel guilty that I'm taking the pause. Because, right, the conditioning is so real. When you're learning to decondition yourself from what you have been taught or what you believe to be true based on outside forces, the undoing is a lot of work, and it is an in the moment, every moment being aware of the decisions that you're about to make next instead of just going through this autopilot like we mentioned earlier of doing things just getting by, like, let's just do that because it's easier, but that may not be the best decision for us. It's an emotional decision that is being made in that moment. For me, at least, I'm just like, "I don't wanna deal with that." Just fine, do it, get it over with, and then hours or even the next day, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I just made my life so much harder." Because now I have to go and fix you know what I mean? And so it's saved me a lot of time and a lot of emotion, a lot of money, and those are just the little things. The coolest thing about knowing what your authority is obviously you become more connected to yourself and more in tune with what your body is telling you. And I think it's really neat when you have these new experiences that are validating what you're integrating into your life, or I should say, reintegrating, remembering, because it's always been there. We've just been conditioned out of it, right? And so I think it's really neat when the more you have the opportunity to get to know yourself on a deeper level, the more connected to yourself you become. And there's so much magic in that. Like, it has been such a fun journey for me, just even like being in the spiritual journey that I've been in for the last, what, 10, 12 years, 12 years, 13, 12 years. So it's just interesting. Like, I'm in such a different place. And in the last 2 years specifically, I've learned more about myself with the human design system than I have in those last 10 years prior. And I think the biggest part of it was knowing my authority. I think that was one of the biggest things, is having permission to be myself. And if I feel emotional, whatever that looks like, there's no judgment towards it anymore. There's no shame, there's no guilt, there's no remorse. And the people around me, like my husband now, he's not emotional, right? And understands that I'm emotional. And instead of getting frustrated or irritated because I'm having an emotion, it's now supported. And it's really incredible. I don't know how else to say it. I've learned so much in the last 2 years with the human design and knowing that, and the people around me who are also living in their design, knowing how I am, me knowing how they are. We get to support each other and show up for each other in these new, profound, beautiful ways.
I agree with that. It's quite what's the word that I want to use? It really is beneficial to understand that even there's various authorities, to know that not everyone just has one way of making decisions, that it's very
Mhm,
personalized for the individual. And then you start to see the person differently.
mhm,
Like the example I used, this young girl, she's emotional. She has some pretty strong emotional waves, and I could describe what her wave would be like. And it was like, she's like, "Wow, it's like you're in my head, and you're talking specifically about me." So when you understand it, and the supporting of the emotional, and understanding that you're not supporting that that there's, because there's no truth in it's emotional
mhm,
energy in motion. It's this understanding that you're going through a lot because you're going through an emotional wave, and it's okay for you to do that, and you'll get clarity as you go move along, and do that natural part of you, and you'll discover and you see things more clearly like that. What's difficult on the flip side of that, for the people that are not, they don't have emotional definition. They don't have that within themselves consistently. It means those are the people that are often say, I'm an empath. The true empath really resonates highly on the emotional scale. Person that's undefined in the language of human design, they do not have within their solar plexus center definitions. So they take in and amplify emotional energy. The people that do that highly empathic. So one of the things that creates is over responsibility, maybe some codependencies. These things that can we look to psychology to solve can be changed quite a bit when we realize, oh, there's the cat. My cat's talking. that when you're feeling emotional energy, and if you're a non-emotional person, is it even yours? Is it something that you need to be responsible for? And when you start to sort that out, because we're experiencing within our inner space lots of sensations, lots of different things that are happening in there. And if you sort through and it's like, whoa, that's not mine. It does allow a bit of freedom when you can let that go. And you don't take responsibility for someone's emotional energy that's their nature. And you can come to an agreement between two different people. Let's say people in the relationship, like you and your husband, you now understood, and you can have this agreement to say, and he knows that he's okay if he just needs to walk out of your space. And this is a whole different language versus, and it helps the emotional person feel like they're not being abandoned or left. Right. And it gives the non-emotional person the ability to not be trapped into making emotional decisions that they would make. Being able to speak maybe more truthfully. People that are non-emotional tend to avoid truth and a confrontation because they don't want to disturb the emotional person because it feels so crazy. Shush. My cat's just, could you hear my kitty talk? She's just talking.
The new experiences we get to have at home now that we're not in the studio.
Right. It's a little bit, we're working out the kinks as we move through these things. I was watching these videos the other day of where there must have been videos when people were doing a lot more work from home, and the cats would show up on the news broadcast or the weather forecast. She's just talking. She says, I have a lot to say. I have authority.
And I do want to mention why we're on that, just as a little, please bear with us with the lighting and the cameras and the sound and all of that stuff. We still are working out some kinks. We've been spoiled. We've been in a studio for years, and then because of my empath qualities, we have made our ways to our own individual spaces, which, feels really good. And also we don't get time with our producer like we used to, or all of the spoiled extras of getting everything set up for us. We're on our own.
We'll get it.
Anyway, I digress. Go ahead.
No, it's moving with what's happening in life. So there is people that don't have emotional definition, they can be definitely swayed because of emotional energy. And we're in a time, and I find it very beneficial within my own personal framework, professionally and on this show, to talk about what's going on in the current, not specifically the current events. There's plenty of shows that will talk about current events, but the various current events that are going on certainly do drive a lot of emotional energy. People have a lot of emotionality or a lot of strong opinions about what various things that are going on.
Right.
And it's part of pulling us this way or that way. And so chaotic. that's what happens with emotional energy too,
Yes.
is that it creates a level of chaos. So being able to take some time and calm with that. So people that are non-emotional, there's a bulk of people on this planet that have an inner authority called sacral. It's the gut. And that's gut. So there's intuition, and then there's this gut feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And the sacral authority has a voice of its own. It belongs to the generators. Every generator has a sacral voice. The people that are not generators within their human design system, manifestors, reflectors, or projectors, don't have that. They can take it and amplify that from someone else, but they don't have that within their own framework. So people that have sacral authority, it's important for them to listen to the movements of their body, and also to ask or be asked questions that can only be answered with a yes or no. And then they can start to tune in and hear that sacral voice, that mm-hmm, or that mm-mm. So if you happen to be familiar with human design and know that you're a sacral authority, or have an awareness that someone that you know that you interact with have sacral authority, then you can ask them questions and you can listen to that voice, the sacral voice, come from them.
Mm-hmm.
I often will explain to people that I'm working with, the sacral doesn't make it complicated. It really is yes or no. Ask me a different question. Not now, maybe.
It's like using a pendulum.
Exactly, it's like you're in a pendulum.
Yes.
And then when I'm discussing with a sacral person,
I'm like,
and they give me
ask.
sentences, oh yes, the pendulum.
Always
exactly
have it.
like that.
My favorite tool. For those of you wondering what I'm talking about.
Yes. What did it take you long to tune in with the pendulum?
No. That's why I adore it so much. We are connected. It is my tool.
Did your pendulum pick you, or did you just know it when you came across it?
Both. I have several. I probably have over 20. A little excessive. Probably emotional decisions were made in those times. Let's be honest.
It's okay. It's part of your nature. So learning to ask a person with sacral authority yes or no questions helps them be clear about the decision making, tuning into their inner authority, noticing when they go to the mind, and the mind likes to talk a lot. And that's for anyone with that mental sphere, to know that the mind likes to talk a lot. It run on sentences, maybe there's justification, all these different things. So tuning into that place inside of yourself that is more certain, more set, that's is a beneficial thing to practice and get to.
I agree. If someone were interested in learning more about their human design and what their authority may be, there's lots of ways that you can do that. Natalie will let you know, but you can also reach out to us at soulwanderings.com. Go to the very bottom of the page. There's like an email contact form, or just email us at connect@soulwanderings.com. You can book a session directly with Natalie by doing so. Just send your email and she'll get back in touch with you. And then you can learn more about what we're talking about as far as the human design goes. I will be doing Akashic readings in the future. I'm on pause right now. But this is what we're talking about. I come from the spiritual side, the Akashic side. Natalie's coming from the human design system. And if you want to know more either way, make sure you guys are following us weekly. We're here on kgradb.com at 5 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm like, whoa, they changed our time. I had to remember after saying it for 8 years. We just have a few more minutes. Did you want to leave us with any final words on the authority?
It's important to take pause, regardless whether you know the human design or you tuned into the Akashic records or you're a regular meditator or not. I want to, it's okay to take pause. Some final words on this is to say nothing is quite what it seems. I was watching this video the other day. This gentleman was in front of a window and he said, you would think that it would be foggy outside by the look of the window. He says, it's not. It's sunny. Digital imagery actually doesn't give us a true representation of what's actually happening in real life. Just for instance, with our images here, what a wonderful thing with our images, people are watching us on the camera. Well, it's not exactly what our room looks like, but we've got this digital imagery that we're working on finessing. So there is a lot of information that's flowing around. There's lots of different perspectives. You take a 2-minute glimpse into something, you take a sound bite, and they're doing this for years. This isn't new, but you take a little sound bite and it's really easy to take and twist one little aspect of a conversation. Have you ever heard that thing that said, if people were to hop into this conversation, they would wonder what the heck we're talking about if they just heard one little moment of a conversation? Well, that's what happens in our soundbite world. And then we fill in the gaps and we create the details from that. So that's what I want to bring up, is what's the benefit of tuning into your own inner space is you can sort through those things and start to clear out some of the debris. We'll go over to you.
I can see that you're talking. Can you hear me? Okay. I've lost my sound, so I'm not sure what you've just shared with me, but either way, our show ends in a minute anyways. So I'm sure you left us with some really great Natalie nuggets towards the end. I trust that to be true. and for the rest of you, I want to thank you if you made it to our earlier time. If you're just joining us at the very end thinking we're going to be starting right now or in 5 minutes, our apologies. We are just ending. So catch the replay at kgradb.com. Also, you guys, we were live tonight on YouTube, and you can find us at Soul Wanderings. Our show will be up for the week under the live section. And we'd love for you to go and subscribe to that channel so that you can join us every week. Make sure you hit the reminder button so we just pop up for you. And we'll see you all next week at 7 p.m. Eastern here on KGRA Digital Broadcasting at kgradb.com. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.